Hello everybody and welcome to Alternative Interactions. I'm Gary. Please like, share and subscribe if you like my content. It really helps me and the channel grow and I really appreciate your support. So today I did drop a little teaser in my Telegram channel last night, but and again I do have a Telegram channel for extra content and more information that I can often share on YouTube, if you know what I mean. I've been away recently, had a little holiday down to the south of England. It's been a very nice, very interesting time. Dorset is a beautiful county, and I was able to get around and meet some friends, new friends, and discover some really interesting things. And it was from my trip down there that another aha moment came across. It's not often I think we come up with something new or something that's not been shown before, and I think this is one of them again. So I'm pretty sure that no one's actually covered this before, so it's quite an interesting one. I've got a really nice slideshow for you, and I shall continue the story once we get the slideshow going. So I'll catch up with you guys once I've sorted the technical stuff out. So blessings everybody, see you in a second. Okay, so here we are. Now, we went on holiday, as I say, to Dorset, and we were taken to this amazing church and earthworks. A friend of mine who we were staying with had actually been here for the summer solstice and had some really interesting experiences, and what a beautiful place. I mean, there's a big red kite flying around, and at the back here you can kind of just see the earthworks from the old part of the habitation. And if we look here, we can see it's 2500 BC. So around 2500 BC, they're saying that these earthworks were around, and at some point a church was built in here, and the church was remodeled by the Normans in the 14th century, so that'd be 13 something. But what was very interesting was, we were looking at this, and we've looked at lots of churches and buildings in the past, and fascinating. And we had a really good look around here. You can actually get behind this wall, you can actually get inside and stand inside the tower and look up, and you can see how it's built. Real interesting. But it seemed to be a building of two parts, as in this bit didn't seem to fit with this bit. However, the material, the darker material that's built in this is actually still in here, look, and on the inside you can see it as well. And that didn't really make much sense, but lovely, thank you very much. So we then went to Cranbourne. I had to write Cranbourne down because I can never remember this church. And this church, the internals of this church, I took a lot of photos, and there's going to be a show coming out on this one. Oh my god, really interesting. This was built, so they say around 11 something, or the first monks or the first vicar or abbot was in there in the late 10s. So 10th century or 11th century building, for sure. Very interesting. And we're walking around looking, and again we noticed that we have a major flint area and the tower, but what we noticed in the tower is we have layers of flint and a different material, flint and a different material. And I have to give credit to this one to my lovely Mrs. Mel, and we were talking away, and she said, The flint is the key. I've just got a message. The flint is the key. She's like me. She gets messages and downloads, even though she doesn't get quite the same sort of thing as I do. She'll often get a knowing, a remembering. And she said, the flint, it's the flint. She said, you know, there's something about the flint. And I was like, okay, yeah. So I then started to look into the flint and what flint is, because you can actually strike flint and get a spark, you know. So but I shall be going more into this beautiful old, it once was an abbey and now a church in Cranbourne, in the near future for sure, because as I say, very, very interesting building. But what I also wanted to do with my research is show you other buildings that were built pre 597 AD. So it was built before AD 597. And this is Church of St Martin, and it's in Canterbury. I've not seen it, I've not been there, but it's the oldest standing complete church in the UK, apparently. But when we get up close to it and we look at it, what do we find? We see flint with red brick and red brick blocks, corner parts of red brick, but we can see even up here that we've got red brick. And here, in this bit here, we have flint with interspersed bits of red brick. Now, bearing in mind that this was built, you know, 500 AD-ish, we're seeing the same kind of patination and the same use of flint within the buildings. And I believe I know why. Flints. Properties in flints. Due to impact on quartz crystals, potential difference is formed, which is disclosed in the form of sparks. So on impact, the surfaces. So basically, if you hit two flints together, you get a spark, and you can create fire from that. But what's very, very interesting, and the bit that I took from this, is the voltage of electric current can reach thousands of volts. So the voltage of electric current can reach thousands of volts. Now, for those of you who have followed me for some time, you would have seen my Tartarian videos on churches and cathedrals being the power grid, and not only just creating free wireless energy for electrical use, but also that they were and created a balanced harmonics via the organs and the church bells, and were fundamentally med beds, and they were breatharians, which meant we didn't eat food. So I've covered all this before, but I just didn't know what the key to this was, and I believe I now do. So what are flints made of? Silica. That's very, very, very interesting. But what's also very, very interesting about flints is, and I shall read on, flint is a type of naturally occurring sedimentary rock made from silica. Now, Richard and I did a program about the giant trees, and the original giant trees were made of silica. They were silica. So these trees that were 2 miles in diameter, that are now rock or mountains, and we covered in our Rocking Pandoors box 14, were silica based. It is found in a variety of sizes, from pebbles to large stones to sheets of rock. The exact details on how flint is formed are complex and still uncertain. So what they're saying is they don't know how flint is formed or created naturally. Now, I didn't know that till I started looking at that, and that's a bit of a head explosion. So we have a building material in the United Kingdom that's used extensively. We have mine systems called Grimes Graves near Thetford. Grimes Graves is a large medieval mining system where they were mining flint out of the ground. But after all these thousands of years of scientists knowing everything, they still don't know how flint is formed. Does make it very interesting and to study, doesn't it? So we have a rock, a material that has a natural high silica content, and science can't tell us where it came from or how it's formed. Normally pure silica or amorphous SiO2, O2 oxygen, isn't it? Water, O2 oxygen. Silica and oxygen together is an important material in modern electronics as well as other fields of science. Normally it has been utilized for its insulation properties, for example in metal oxide semiconductor devices. So it's being used in fields of science and electronics and electricity. So let's have a look at some of these uses. This is a semiconductor. We have resistors, so when the current goes through here, that it will create resistance via having silica layers and levels to come out the other day. These are chips, these are transistors, diodes and capacitors. But all of these require silica. All of these are used in modern chip circuitry boards and are a derivative of the flint stone. Now, this is how it works. We have the terminal, the wire going through, we have metal plates, and we have the dielectric, and the dielectric would be the flint. So we have metal, or a metal kind of object, or an object that would have the same kind of abilities with flint, metal, and this would then control the flow of electricity from this point to this point. And we can see that an electrical capacitor, the patent was filed in 1934, and on August the 10th 1937 was completed, and we can see we have layers. It's a layered system to control the flow of electricity or energy. It's a way of making sure that if we have sudden spikes or drops, that the current, the energy flow is consistent. Now I may be getting that wrong, I'm no expert on this, but you get the idea. So when we put this on its side and we look at this building again, what do we see? We see a semiconductor. Flint, a stone or a material likely, because of its colour, to have a very high iron content. Here, stone with high iron content, flint. Stone with high iron content, flint. Stone with high iron content, flint. This tower is a semiconductor to control the energy, and this building, the building of it, is all part of that control mechanism and the energy device, and these would have been built specifically to give the exact resonance required for what was needed in the area, depending on the ley lines or dragon lines, the natural energies of the land, as well as the proximity to other churches and cathedrals. Now, I've just said a lot there in that one slide. So, you know, this tower is a semiconductor of electricity or energy, and would have been designed specifically to control the amount of energy given out of that building for the benefit of the people and animals. That's huge. Massive. Now, obviously, I don't know how it works properly, but I'm sure you guys are getting the picture now. This is real interesting stuff, and I have never seen anybody put this together with this, with the flint. Now, the other thing is that caused so much consternation with myself and my missus and our friend who was with us, Angela, lovely Angela was with us, was the fact that in this area there is no flint. So this flint was moved to this location. There's no flint mines, there's no flint at the coast. So whenever this was built, you know, I suspect it's pre-500 AD. They'll tell us that there was wooden structures on them. We'll go into that later when we look at Norwich, my local town, or city, sorry. But we're told in history that these people didn't even have horse and carts, and they were oxen, and they were, you know, they had no technology. And here they are building semiconductors to control the etheric energy of the atmosphere. That's mind-blowing. So what is silica used for in electronics? Silica sand is used for the manufacture of capacitors as well, essential components in electronic circuits that store and release electrical energy. So silica stores and releases electrical energy. High purity silica is used to produce capacitor grade dielectric materials, which provide the insulating properties necessary for the efficient energy storage and discharge. So the tower was a capacitor and was the big block of flint used because of its high grade dielectric material properties for efficient energy storage and discharge. So we'll look at this. Now this is Norwich. This is this part of the old wall of Norwich. And we have cathode, and we have two types of material to create a flow. The brick with red would be high in iron content, and the battery or the storage of that energy would be the flint. And so this isn't a wall as such. This is a diode or a capacitor, a great big physical capacitor or diode or cathode. It's a way of controlling the resonance of the energy. Here we have a cathedral, inside. We've shown this one before. Okay, so we know that this is exactly the same as the circuit board. And here, what do we have? Capacitors, diodes, all here. And what we see with Flint layered with other materials is exactly the same as this circuitry board. Now, I'm not saying this church was built out of Flint. I'm using it as an example where we can see that this will not work without the correct control mechanism, and layered flint with other materials would have given that control mechanism. This is why, and part of the reason, they have copper running through churches. This would have carried energy. Could have been a grounding area, or it would have been connected to potentially. And again, I can't say that this church here has got any flint in it, but for instance, this would have been part of the mechanics of the church or the cathedral, so that they had an energy device that could have worked and been controlled by the design of the building and the materials of that building. Now, as they got more advanced in the later years, in the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th century, they certainly could have used other materials. But we are seeing silica-based materials used in a same system as we use today in the electronic boards 500 AD. In 500 AD. Now, solar panels. Interesting. I don't think they're very good for you. I don't think they're very healthy. And the way our current government's dimming the sun with the geoengineering that's been going on for ages, but it's just now started apparently, or about to start, we have solar panels. The role of silica sand in solar panels. Silica sand plays a vital role in enhancing the efficiency of solar panels by facilitating the conversion of sunlight into electricity. So there we go again. Flint in the old buildings would have been used potentially even to convert sunlight into electricity, which is why they needed the capacitors, because on a sunny day they had the potential to spike the energy, which could have been unhealthy for the people. Big concepts, I know, but this is real fascinating stuff, and I think we're really onto something. So let's go to Norwich City walls. Now, the Norwich City walls were built between 1297 and 1343. I'm calling that as total rubbish. And when they say no houses were built on the outside of the wall until 1779 to 1789, that's total hokum as well. They have exactly the same story in Great Yarmouth. And there is on my playlists, Jack's fan, I think she's called it something else like MD or something like that, and she goes through this and the history of Great Yarmouth, and she proves categorically that there were houses pre this time on the outskirts of the walls of Great Yarmouth. History is total bunkum. But I just want you to see this date. You know, the earliest date for the wall was 1294. Okay. Now this is what they were building in 1294. But this is very interesting again. We have the solid flint walls with the odd bit of brick. This is actually the entrance to the cathedral. This is one of the entrances to the cathedral. Norwich Cathedral sits just in this area here. And you can see a Flint building there as well. But look at this. We have seen in church windows that the energy was used and it came through this to create and beam energy out, with the flint inside this. And bearing in mind, when we're looking at sacred geometry, right, this is actually the Christ code. This is the crystalline code. This is not the Fibonacci sequence, the days of death. This is the crystalline code, this one. So this is a good positive energy, and it's got flint. I mean, it could have had glass in originally, I don't know, but it's currently got flint. These are currently flint. Could have been changed. But certainly this could be the capacitor of the electrical grid of the entire wall of Norwich. Now these are two shots of the wall of Norwich. This is a close-up, and we can see where we have random, but I don't think a random, red bricks. And these red bricks, I think, control the energy and are not there randomly. They're placed there as part of the etheric grid, the energy grid that went round Norwich. This is part of an old tower. This part has obviously been destroyed and gone, but we can clearly see a line of brick, and we can clearly see another line of brick going here, and there's probably a line that went up there. This is another capacitor. The main wall is like this with hardly any red brick, and then we get this, and these are breakouts. These are breakers almost of the energy. Depending on how far away from the cathedrals or the church this was built will depend on how much red brick is used or what layering is required. Another one, and here this wall we can see we have a layer of original brick. So this has had to have a layer of red brick, and this red brick is very high in iron content. So we have the metal, and then we have the silica. This is obviously new, this edging, but these bricks here are not, and we can see a channel here. Oops, we can see a channel here, more red brick, and the wall then continues. These red bricks are not there by chance. They're there as part of, as a diode or a capacitor of some sort to control the energy flow around that area. And isn't it interesting that all of these old walls and all of these really old cathedrals and these things are generally destroyed? They destroyed them because this was part of our natural grid. Now you've seen this before, positive energy at the top, negative at the bottom, and this is how we create toroidal fields of energy off the cathedrals or the churches to create electrical energy and also energy in the form of frequency that would have been beneficial to us, the people. The ground is negative, the air is positive. That's why it's good to stand and ground yourself, because when you've got your feet on the ground, you've got negative ions on your feet, and in your head you've got positive ions, and your heart would be here, and you'd get a big toroidal field, and you would rebalance yourself back into the nature or of Mother Gaia, back into the crystalline code or the Christ code nature of reality, which is what we are, as in the physical. And again, I have done videos on this as well, about the Quiz code and the Fibonacci sequence and sacred geometry, and how it really is not beneficial. Now, this is a map of Norwich around 1260, and this is the wall, and this is a wall, and this is the River Wensum, which our current water company is really enjoying putting raw sewage into at the moment and killing very quickly. But what's interesting is here is Norwich Castle. Now it's now got a brick facade, but originally I think this would have been the power unit of the entire area, and the cathedral is here. Very close, and you can see that the wall would have had to change, and the kind of wall that was built around certain areas would have had to have changed for the amount of energy hitting this from here compared to here, which is why we see differences in the wall and going on. But what's also interesting is, when we can see ultra aquam, the river flows. The river would have brought in positive and negative ions into this area as well, to create a zone or an area that would have been similar to a star fault. I believe it would have been a positive energy source, and the reason why people probably didn't live outside of it in large numbers is because the real energy and the positive energy was inside the city, because the walls acted as a barrier, and you could almost look at that. I mean, it's almost a heart shape, but you could almost, and it is a toroidal field creator, but you could almost see the fact that living inside here, you would be living inside a toroidal field of positive pure energy that was controlled and balanced in nature via flint stone, because Norwich is built mainly with flint stone. We've seen this before, the flint stone with the red brick. So you've got the cathode, the cathedral, pumping out the energy, and this would have been controlling it. Because anybody, if this was a wall for defence, would have been able to walk past and through this easily. Yes, there are towers, but this does not, and this is not a tower. Actually, I know exactly where this is, and believe it or not, round the corner here, probably a 3 or 4 minute walk away, is one of the main towers, and that tower is actually called the Devil Tower by locals. Right, so the Great Hospital of Norwich was founded, that's that word again, founded, not built, founded, in 1249, and yet the wall wasn't built nearly 50 years later. And it lies beside the Norwich Cathedral precinct. We've seen the other side of that, the entrance. This historic building includes St Helena's Church, cloisters, and the Master's House, rectory, and Great Hall. And they're arranged in a series of courtyards. Now, when I show you this picture, that's what they built. 1249, pre the wall by nearly 50 years. Look at all of this they built, and this is Norwich Cathedral, and this was Norwich Cathedral. While we're on the subject of Norwich Cathedral, apparently construction was begun in 1096, But it was a wooden cathedral, apparently, which I don't believe at all. And apparently the cathedral was damaged in 1272 and repaired. The cloisters were begun in 1297, which is the second largest cloisters in England. And the present spire, the second tallest in England, at 96 metres or 315 feet, is a stone structure built in 1480 that replaced the one made of wood. Now, I actually think that that's a lot older than that. But it seems to me that in around 1000 or 1000 AD, an awful lot of building was going on by people with oxens and hand tools, which were, we're told, were very, very basic, and yet they're creating things like this. Massive buildings. And again, look at this church. Look at the top. That distinct different colour is actually going to have a metal oxide in it, iron probably. I would say that this church tower is also part capacitor. Beautiful, isn't it? The window frames are all stone from the oldest bits. These buildings here would have again been flint, but they've been plastered over and painted white to cover up. Now, spark plugs. This is an energy thing. We have resistors, insulators, metal shell, a terminal. We see this throughout in buildings. This is modern. This is old. Look at the Flint wall of the old hospital. 1297 this was constructed. But we have the old brickwork, and we have the window here that with the old brickwork. Capacitor from the energy from this, just like a spark plug, or similar to. And the tiles, is there a reason for the tiles being that colour? Because I don't think anything's by chance. I mean, I'm not sure they even had tiles initially. I think it would have possibly been thatched and they've been re-roofed at a later date. Because again, in Norfolk we have a lot of reed and a lot of thatch from the Broads, and so I think they would have used the materials around. Again, right. Hello everyone. Well, I hope you found that really interesting and fascinating. I certainly think we're onto something really quite big here. I think it's we look at these old buildings with the odd bit of red brick or higgledy-piggledy, and actually what we're looking at is advanced understanding of frequencies and the electrical use of the materials they had available at the time. And I would even go to say that they were far more advanced than we are today. Far more advanced. Because they could build a city, enclose it in a wall that created a perfect frequency, an environment for those people to not only live but thrive and survive in ways that we can't even comprehend today. Flint and the silica was key to the Tartarian world, or pre-Tartarian world even. Totally fascinating, totally, for me, mind-blowing. So I hope you found that very, very interesting, and that's got you thinking and now looking at materials and buildings. I'm sure, I don't know about other countries, but certainly in the UK we do find certain key buildings in certain churches that will have flint in them. The real old ones will have flint in them, and there's no flint around in the area. No flint mines. No, it would have had to have been, produced. And I'm pretty sure when I look at the building or the rebuilding of Norwich Cathedral or Norwich Castle, the limestone, I can't remember the year now. I mean, it could be 14 or 1500s. Okay, I don't want to misquote this, but the material used, this was when we were taken over by the Normans, so it would have been around 1400s, 1500s. And the materials used came from France. So what our cathedral is covered in, what the Roman Catholic Cathedral is covered in, and what the castle in Norwich is now covered in, are blocks of stone that came from France in the 1500s and 1600s. And that don't make sense either. To move thousands, hundreds and thousands of tons of material to build and cap and encapsulate buildings from thousands of miles, or hundreds and hundreds of miles away, thousands of miles away potentially, does not make sense. The history that we have has been totally and utterly taken away from us. And what's exciting is we now have the opportunity to start trying to work it all out and see these, and we get little tidbits. So with that, I'm going to leave you. Now please like, share and subscribe, and I'd appreciate if you shared this one around, because I think this has never been, this kind of connection has never been put together before. I think it's new and unique, and it'd be nice to get some feedback from others about this and what you think. Can you see it? Do you see what I'm seeing? Very, very interesting. So with that, I shall let you go. Thank you very much for listening and watching my presentation. Love, light and blessings, everybody. To the family, thank you very much for all your support, lovely comments. Do appreciate it. You guys are stars, and I shall catch up with you guys very soon. Thank you very much. Bye.